What advice would you give to brand new designers that are looking to become freelancers at some stage?
The field is called user experience. And my term is probably a little broader, and I apply user experience not just to the products I design. So what does that mean? If you're designing an app, a lot of times a designer will try to put themselves in the shoes of the user of the app. And they may do a great job of that, and that's great user experience. But that's just one window or aspect of user experience. Your client is also your user in many sense. They're the ones handing you a paycheck. So in that sense, they are also your user. So I think about the user experience between my service and the client. What is that user experience like? The people you work with, people you hand off your assets to is also the user. So like my sketch file, is that neat or is that a mess? Are the layers labeled, or is it layer 21, layer 23, group 14, ungrouped, unnamed, whatever? Within our team now, we have a process where we have standard operating procedures where there's a convention to organizing your sketch file, because 6 months from now, you may be onto another project and I may have to give that sketch file to somebody else. And if it's a mess and they can't navigate it, that's a bad user experience for that designer. So I'm making sure that we craft a good user experience for our own designers. Or if you're handing that sketch file off to an engineer and it's a mess, that's a bad user experience for that developer. So we want to craft a good user experience for them too, not just the client, not just for the end user. So we think about user experience in many ways that way.
That is great advice.
Yeah, I would encourage young designers to not just think about user experience so narrowly that it's just about the user of the app. The user, anything you hand off to somebody, there's a user experience happening there. Your client, you're handing your deliverables to a client. You're presenting your deliverables to a client. How do you present your deliverables to a client? That's user experience too. You're working with another designer. If you're working on a big project, that's user experience, right? What kind of user experience do you want that designer who's working with you to have? If you're handing files back and forth and it's a mess, that's a bad user experience. This happens quite a lot where you may be the primary designer, and let's say there's an Android version, so now you're handing an iOS sketch file to someone who's going to turn it into an Android app. If your files are messy, that's bad user experience. If you didn't slice your sketch file appropriately and your Zeppelin file is a mess, that's bad user experience for the engineer who's going to work on it. And it creates friction, it creates frustration, and it doesn't create a seamless workflow, and it creates wasted time.
Pek, that's the first time I've heard anybody talk about that. I absolutely love that perspective. You're so right. That needs to be conveyed to many, many people, and it's a nice reminder for myself. The best work is where every touch point, where it's seamless.
I would say that's kind of like high level, right? Like mastery of just the user experience of the app is one level, right?
Sure.
When you have mastered these aspects, these touch points, it's just another level. Such a nice experience to work with a designer who's aware of all these touch points, as opposed to, I'm a great designer, I make great apps, but hey, here's a mess of a file, here's the sketch file, I don't care, do what you will with it, go figure it out. As a huge different experience to a person who can work at that different level, where they're cognizant of the experience that they're providing to their clients, to the engineers, to other designers, to stakeholders and stuff like that.